Welcome to the Pro Wrestler's Handbook. I was planning on doing the video about the premiere of our silly little wrestling league, but that can wait till tomorrow. Recently things have come up and I've had a lot of discussions with different people about the nature of heat in wrestling, how to control it, how to make it happen. We've swapped stories about times where heat got way out of control. We sort of lamented that heat seemed to be something that people weren't really going for nowadays or didn't think was important. And it made me realize I haven't done a pro wrestling handbook about heat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about it. I've come up with my own thing, which you will see in the form of a visual aid that will, I think, assist things a lot. And even people who know what they're doing, and there's certainly a number of those people who will watch this video, you'll probably learn a little something, because I learned a little something myself having to articulate it in a way that I haven't had to before. Even this people that I trained didn't get this level of training in heat, so enjoy. Then I'm going to talk about how to handle the heat when it happens, right? This is not an indictment against anybody. This is not directly related to anything that's happened recently in Georgia wrestling or any other wrestling. But there's a couple of things that I've noticed, and I think because heat hasn't really been a thing for a long time, that people don't know how to handle it. And I think that's been shown with a number of incidents lately. So I want to instruct individuals on how to handle the heat, and what others should be doing about it as well. Cool? Let's get into it. Let's talk about heat. Let's talk about heat, baby. And if my video editing skills are up to par, then I'm going to put my visual aid, which I'm calling the heat pyramid, right here. Yeah? And there it shall remain. How does it look? Looks pretty shitty. It's the best that I can slap together with the graphics thing without driving myself totally crazy. All right. You'll notice that there's 3 levels. I wanted to break it up in this way, and now all of these levels are legitimate. They are ways of getting a crowd. What is heat? It's a way to get the crowd become emotionally invested in what you are doing. We also use the phrase heat to mean when you are basically delivering damage and offense to somebody else. Oh, this is the heat spot. This is where the heel puts the heat on the baby face, right? But the reason it's called that is because in theory, you are getting an emotional reaction out of the crowd. Cool. White hot heat. You've heard that expression before. Either someone lying on a show that you were with when they were saying they had white hot heat, or when you hear old timers talk about it, right? It is probably true that people don't really get heat like they used to, though it's certainly possible, as we found out here recently. Yeah. Let's start at the bottom level. These chopsticks are amazing. Bottom level right here. Cheap heat. You've heard the expression, what is cheap heat? I've divided that into 3 parts. Cheap heat is where you make fun of the town itself, or the area, or the audience in which you wrestle in front of, right? This town sucks. I hate this place. Oh, Indiana. Blah, 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 right? An offshoot of that, but really it kind of deserves a category of its own, is your identifying markers of the town, like sports teams. The sports teams here suck. Right? You see them do that even in the WWE, right? The heel will come out in the wrong team's jersey. Oh, right? It's cheap heat, but it works, right? People feel emotional attachment to sports and their sports team in particular. And if you're from Cleveland, you don't want somebody rubbing it in your face that the Browns suck. So it's a way to get an emotional connection and a reaction, but it's easy, right? Hence cheap heat. And it doesn't really resonate on a deeper level, but nonetheless, it is heat. Yeah. So it's either making fun of the region itself, sports teams, or things that are identifiers of that region in particular. And the third way is to individualize the cheap heat. You fat boy, right? The Dudley boys in ECW, they dealt exclusively in cheap heat. Oh, that daughter looks like her mother taught her how to suck dick. It's in going after somebody individually based on a trait, right? Hey, fat guy. Ric Flair did it. Again, you'll find these three different heat categories, right? Cheap heat, the other, or primal threats. Sometimes it blurs the line between two of them, but categorizing them helps a lot. So cheap heat is the bottom of the pyramid. It's also the most common, which is why a pyramid is a good graphic, right? Most people just dabble in cheap heat, and they're happy that they're getting a reaction out of the crowd, and then they go to it repeatedly. The thing about cheap heat, though, is the more it is utilized, especially if you're using the same tactic again and again and again, it's diminishing returns, because again, it's not a deep emotional reaction, it's superficial and surface. So if you continue to go back to things that are superficial and surface, the effect that you will get and the emotion you will get out of the people will be lessened, because it is not on a deeper level, because it is superficial at best. Second level, I am the other. I'm different than you, and therein lies the heat. It can be class things. I'm rich, you're poor. How many gimmicks have run off of this simple premise, right? It's not quite cheap heat. It's a little more elevated because it feels more personal. Ironically, calling somebody fat boy, it's just for one person and it's really superficial. But if you're bringing up class stuff, that's sort of an indictment of most of your audience. So you're not just attaching yourself to one person, you're speaking to the chorus, right? I'm rich, you're poor. I'm a winner, you're a loser. Foreign menaces go under this as well. I'm the other. Yeah. I'm different. From parts unknown. Sometimes just being sort of a scary monster type or mysterious is enough, right? Great Muda, he's from the Pearl of the Orient, as Gary Hart would have said, right? He's the other. It's different. That's scary. Or it can be, if you want to go a different way, the unobtainable woman is the heel and gets heat. You'll never get me. And there's something that's true about that, and that creates heat in and of itself. For all the guys that want to see me and all the women that want to be me, are you ready for the grind? It was horrible. But there was a time where Sable was the number one heel woman with that simple catchphrase, which identified her as the other. I am unobtainable for the men. And women want to be like me, but they aren't me. I am the other. I'm superior. Biggest level of heat. The primal threat. I have it listed originally as the existential threat. The Undertaker is one of the cheesiest gimmicks that has become one of the most beloved gimmicks, but no doubt that on one level it's cheesy, right? A guy who kind of moves around like a zombie and kind of acts like a zombie and is sort of indestructible, so why did it work? Is it because it was cartoony? No, because on one level, with the presentation in particular, it was a heel gimmick because everybody's afraid of death. And that's what he invoked. Death. Very primal fear. the monster gimmick. Especially back in the day where all it took was the monster to even make a motion towards people and they would be genuinely scared and terrified. Could you imagine that kind of heat? The monster, the one that epitomizes death itself, the one that challenges your very core beliefs on a primal level. Satan worshippers. That's a different kind of heat altogether. That's not cheap heat. That's not simply I am the other. That's challenging your very worldview and philosophy. Other examples of primal is whoever we're at war against, right? There's a foreign menace, and then there's being from the Soviet Union when the feeling was at any moment we could go to a nuclear war and die from it. It's a different level of heat. Iron Sheik being WWF champion with this shadow of the hostage crisis happening is primal because it forces you to get into this tribal mentality. Primal threats. In PCW, creating heels was not easy to do. The two most successful was Dwight Power, who is the epitome of the other, right? I'm racist, I'm homophobic, I'm sexist, and I'm right in your face. But there are times at his best, in promos especially, where he approached existential threat. Everything you hold dear, Atlanta, Georgia, and you find so special about yourself, I'm going to destroy it right in front of you. I'm going to stomp on this woman's head. I'm going to take the black retarded guy, and I'm going to American History X his mouth on this board. And you can't stop me. And then I'm going to cut a promo that sounds very, very real. It's a primal threat. It's like I'm threatening your very life. All three forms of heat are incredibly valid. But the more that you can appeal up here instead of simply down here, the more long-lasting, the more heartfelt, the more dangerous your heat is. And keep in mind, you can hit this level when you challenge someone in the audience. There's the wimpy one where people kind of sit on the rope and then they go like, well, why don't you come in here? It doesn't feel real. And then there's what Amy Haven experienced, which is, well, fine, bitch, come and jump on me. And there's nothing there to stop her because there's the primal thing of, I've been threatened. And more than that, I'm being challenged. I could be embarrassed if I don't answer this challenge. There's something in me that has been stirred by Amy Haven, and now I have to go fight her. I don't have a choice. That's what it feels like, because they've been threatened on some kind of primal emotional level. Cool? Great. Other examples of cheap heat, by the way, you're ugly, you're stupid, shut up. Or responding when people say that you suck, it's like, well, your father swallows. Simple, easy, individualized things are cheap heat. All right. Now you've riled them up. And they're really riled up. You've appealed to them perhaps on multiple levels of heat. You've angered them, truly angered them. You got to know your surroundings. Do they have barriers? Do they have security? Do you need to clue security in because they're not paying attention to the fact that you've really got it going on here? I remember when I managed Simon Sermon at MGCW and we were getting white hot heat, and then we had the balls to fucking go out into the crowd. Luckily, security was there to sort of keep people off of us, but Simon and I just had to be so threatening. Anybody who got close to us, and they got close to us, we had to let it be known that fucking we're going to fight you. I'm glad we didn't have to. When on the last night of Anarchy, the first time that they did the last night of Anarchy, when my team lost the War Games, and so Jeff G was going to get me in the cage for 5 minutes, and I attempted to run away. I had to fight through that crowd. By the time I reached the front door so Seven could grab me and bring me all the way back to the cage, it probably took me 2 minutes to get there because people kept grabbing me and fighting me, and it was heat. Thanks a lot, fucking security. Did not help at all. Got to know your surroundings. And you know whose job it is to read the room? Everybody's. Everybody watching the show. Everybody involved in the match. Referees. Everybody's got to be able to read the room. How do you deal with it if stuff goes down? What if a crowd really is getting physically involved with one of the wrestlers? Assuming that they're jumping on the heel, which is a safe assumption, then the baby face can be the first person to intervene and take care of it. Goes down there, grabs the heel, pushes the crowd out of the, no, he's mine or she's mine or whatever. And then you brawl to the back. This was suggested by Simon Sermon, and I think it's brilliant. Another option. Stop them with your voice. No, I'm going to take care of this right now. But sometimes things have gotten too escalated. Maybe somebody's come into the ring. At that point, story. We're at, when I was the head instructor at WWA 4, a lot of you might not have known that, we had a sweet gig where we would get paid to wrestle at the strip club. And one time, two of the guys were wrestling each other. Hayden Young and Tacoma. And they're wrestling each other. And it was on a kickboxing ring, and it was on the ground. So this thing was hard as shit. So bumps were few and far between, and we definitely used them sparingly. So they're kind of mat wrestling. And then this one guy who worked there, I think, at the strip club, but he wasn't a bouncer, or if he was a tiny one. But he kept coming in the ring and sort of like making fun of the wrestlers and all this kind of shit, and hinting that he could go in there, I can go in there and kick your ass and blah, blah, blah. And then I remember one of the, Patrick, Hayden Young had Tacoma in a front face like, and I did this, like, come over here, motherfuckers. So they gator rolled themselves all the way over to the side of the ring to me, and I said, next time that guy comes in the ring, either you do something about it or I'm going to do something about it. They understood. They rolled back to the middle of the ring. That guy came in the ring again. Hayden Young goes over there. Amateur style, gets behind the guy, waist lock, picks him up, dumps him on the ground. Doesn't hurt him, but definitely scared the shit out of him. Puts him on his face and then just starts riding and spinning. And he's taking things out of the guy's pocket and his watch off, and he's throwing them out of the ring so the guy will leave, and the guy leaves. Pretty good fucking way to deal with it. But that also led to the split between Frank Aldridge and I, and changed the course of Georgia wrestling, really. And I'll go into that story on Patreon at some point. If you're egging on somebody to attack you, and this is not an indictment at Amy Haven, but you have to be prepared for the possibility, especially if you've looked at your surroundings, that it could happen. And everybody else has to be aware of that possibility as well and be ready to act. It's important. But ultimately, here's the final lesson about heat. Especially if things break down with an audience. Pro wrestling people, I understand that you haven't had to deal with this kind of situation very often in the modern game. But hopefully, as everybody continues to improve, heat is going to increase, especially at certain promotions where the fans tend to still be true believers, or at least whip themselves up into a frenzy enough. Everybody should have the wrestler's back. Everybody on the wrestler's side. At the point at where shit breaks down, there are two fucking sides, and I don't care how antiquated this sounds, I don't care how tribal this sounds, there are wrestling people and the motherfucking marks, and you gotta pick a fucking side, and you better fucking get on the front line of that fucking army as soon as shit breaks down. Period. Does that mean I'm advocating that you fucking start a fucking fight? Not if you don't have to, but you fucking better show out, you better empty the fucking locker room, and you better take care of shit. At PCW, the wrestlers would have taken care of things, except I took care of them first because I was out there as an announcer. Were there fans that I physically grabbed and dragged into the locker room because they poked one of the wrestlers in the eye? Yes. Were there fans who fucking confronted one of the wrestling people in the parking lot afterwards and touched them? What did I do to that fucking fat fuck? Next show, I grabbed him by the throat and put him against the wall before the show started and fucking threatened him within an inch of his life. You're goddamn right I did. There are two fucking sides when it comes to fucking heat spilling over and going crazy. There's the wrestler side and the mark side. And if you're not picking a side, then you're on the fucking mark side. This is me speaking especially to the young wrestlers who may not have dealt with real heat before. The whole locker room should have been out for fucking Ace Haven and Amy. Everybody! And if you weren't, you should be fucking embarrassed. But it doesn't just go there. It goes to the public statements as well. If you can't fucking toe the fucking line publicly for each other, then what the fuck are you? You're not wrestling people. Don't you dare call yourself a fucking wrestler or a promoter or a booker if you publicly said anything deriding Amy Haven or Ace Haven. Now you might say, well, Steve, what about you? You fucking criticized the promoter. You goddamn right I did. My role's a little different. But believe you me, if they were people that I worked with directly, you think I would be fucking chastising them publicly for my own clout? Fucking lily-livered sacks of shit who dare call yourself wrestling people. You are not. You got a problem with something that a wrestler did, then you take it up with them privately. Especially when it's a matter of heat going out of control. You don't fucking publicly chastise them, you deal with them privately. Because, fuckers, it's us against them. It's us, the performers, and the audience. And if you can't fucking draw a line and pick a fucking side and have each other's back, then what the fuck are you doing? You're not a part of something bigger, which is what you wanted to be when you became a wrestler, right? To be part of something bigger. Well, that thing that you are a part of that is bigger than you brings with it responsibilities. I shouldn't even have to fucking say this, but apparently I do. Have each other's fucking back. Publicly on social media, as well as when incidents fucking happen. Because you know why? Because you would want the same done for you. Right, dickheads? Everybody talks about wrestling, this is my family, this is my family. Then for fuck's sake, have your families back in the fucking future. This has been Pro Wrestler's Handbook.